Good day and welcome to 4E TV. I'm Dr. Mark with my wonderful, beautiful, more intelligent, gorgeous better half, Dr. Michele. And we are M&M without the sugar. Yeah, we have a good time with that every day, and it's kind of cool to share that with you and share our life. And just to remind you, the 4E philosophy, we are all about your betterment in every part of your life, physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and also it's like the four-legged chair. You know, we want you to be solid in every corner. And, you know, folks, we talk to you many times about what it means to live the 4E philosophy and the 4E life. If you neglect one part of that, you will suffer in other parts as well. They are interdependent. We have used the analogy before of holding hands. As I hold my hand into my wonderful wife's hands, the fingers interlock, they fit together. That is how we fit together physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. We fit together like a glove. You can't neglect one part over the other. If we do, we're going to suffer. We want you to be at peace. That's why we use these times we have together. And we thank you for joining us, by the way, to give you tools necessary to equip you to spend some valuable, constructive time towards that end every day. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritual health can be yours, and you can be well. And we are going to talk about something today that really can derail us often and also give you tools to overcome that. The theme we have today's program is this: fear. Fear. Have you ever been scared or been fearful? I mean, the answer is obviously yes, whether you watch something on the movie or watched something on television or heard something on the radio or had someone knock on the door that put fear into your life. I remember as a child, one of my most fearful moments, I was with my friends. We were playing with remember the little plastic wiffle balls and the plastic bats? We were playing in their backyard, and we used to play all day. And it was getting dusk one evening, and one of my friend's fathers thought he would play a great joke as I was gathering my plastic bat up and my plastic ball to go home. We were walking around the corner of the house, and my friend's father, well, he jumped around the corner and he blew a duck call. And when he did that in the dusk, I didn't know what it was. I was so scared that I literally jumped up in the air, landed flat on my back, and my feet continued to just pedal, going nowhere. My friend who was with me was gone. He actually ran, his feet were on the ground. But my feet were running, but my feet were in the air. And all I could do was sit there and scream and yell and cry, and I got scared. That's kind of an extreme circumstance where someone actually put fear in me to have fun. But in reality, fear can cause us to really deteriorate in our life in a lot of ways. And did you know that faith and fear cannot exist in the same breath? They cannot exist in the same realm. And what does God say about fear anyway? And how should we really handle it? Because we know it's a real emotion, because throughout God's word you hear, have no fear or don't fear. When the angels appeared to the shepherds in the field, they said, don't fear or have no fear. So obviously God understands it's a normal emotion because he put that in us, but how do we handle that? Is it easy enough just to say, don't fear, and everything's all good? Probably not. It's just not quite that simple. There's actually something more we need to learn from fear. And what does the Bible say about that in general? So we're going to turn to a couple passages today that I really want you to catch. The first one is found in the book of Psalms. Now, Psalms is a wonderful, wonderful book, mostly written by King David. And I want you to turn right now with me to Psalm 27 and verse 1 through 3. In Psalm 27, 1 through 3, the context of this is that David is on the run, which he was on the run quite a bit as Saul's army was pursuing him. You know, Saul's kind of the crazy king, and David was the up-and-coming king. Saul was God's choice until God removed his hand from him, and then David became God's choice for king. And so obviously there was opposing forces going on at each other, and David was running from Saul's army. So he was running from an army that outnumbered him. The odds were stacked against him. How did David handle fear? And did he have fear? Of course he had fear. Of course he did. That's why he spoke of it in his psalm. So we're going to read Psalm 27, verse 1 through 3. And here we go. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Question mark. The Lord is a stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evil men advance against me to devour my flesh, when my enemies and my foes attack me, they will stumble and fall. Verse 3, though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. So even though he's talking about fear, do you think fear crept into his life? Of course it did. It was right there knocking on the door, and it's right there knocking on the doors all the time. There's a lot of fears we're going to talk about today in regard to how it affects us physically and physiologically. We'll get into that in just a moment, but it's important to understand that fear is a normal emotion, but also God wants us to not let fear run us. He wants faith to be our controller in life. As opposed to being a fearful person, we need to be a faithful person. Get the context. Fearful, faithful. Fearful, faithful. What are you today? Are you fearful or are you faithful? I understand there's a lot of things going on in the world that might try to drive fear or that concept into your life. However, what does God say? This is not just historical. This is present tense and this is futuristic. What does God say about fear? The Lord is my light. He is my salvation. Whom shall I fear? He's a stronghold. Why do I have to be afraid of anything or anybody, even though the odds seem to be stacked against me? Why do I have to fear? If we put our trust in God, it's not saying the fear becomes easy. It's not saying it's not real. It just says that faith will begin to override the fear. Faith will begin to be the dominant force in our life. Take it over as opposed to fear. How many times do you feel like the odds are stacked against you? I'm sure that happens sometime, or sometimes really overwhelmed or even overcome by fear. Do you know that fear, as I said, cannot exist in the same breath as faith? One more passage I want you to look at, and then we're going to go into our discussion about fear today. 1 John chapter 4. Back to the New Testament. I'm going to turn to 1 John chapter 4, and we're going to be looking at just 3 verses once again in 1 John chapter 4. And I really hope you really write these down. Psalm 27, 1 through 3, and 1 John chapter 4, verse 16 through 18. Those are key passages regarding how to deal with fear. Verse 16 in 1 John chapter 4, and I'll begin. And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. Listen to this, 3 words. God is love. I'm going to say that one more time. God is love. He does not just make love. He does not just demonstrate love. He does not just give love. He is love. He invented love. He epitomized love. He is love himself. God is love. I'll continue. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. In this way, verse 17, love is made complete among us so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment, because in this world we are like him. You see that word, have confidence, come back? Confidence does not have to be something that we egotistically boast about. Confidence is something we can boast about if it comes from God. Confidence is important. I'll continue. Verse 18, and I'll conclude here. There is no fear in love. No fear in love. But perfect love drives out all fear. So if God is love, who drives out fear? It's God himself. Who fights that battle for us? It's God himself. And I'll continue, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. We have nothing to do with fear. If we have a relationship with Jesus Christ, we have nothing to do with fear. The blood of Jesus, his sacrifice for us, his death, his burial, and his resurrection made a way for us to have a perfect fellowship, a perfect relationship with God himself. He is love. If we know Jesus, he becomes part of us. We become part of God in that way, and we become the epitome of him, which is love. Therefore, we don't have to let fear control us. If we let God control us, that faith that we have through him, that love, is driving out the fear in our lives. So the more we can be tight with him, the more fear goes away. In him we have confidence. In him we move and have our being. That's what God does. Does fear affect our health? You bet it does. And Dr. Michele, we've talked about this so much, over the course of time in regard to fear. I mean, we talk to people in the clinic daily about things that they fear and what are they afraid of. Some people fear overeating. What has been your experience with that?
With people being obese because of overeating,
right,
and the relationship to fear. Oftentimes we don't know why we're so afraid. Fear is false evidence appearing real, and that fear that is really not there, or maybe rooted in the past in some sort of childhood experience or some sort of traumatic event that is not in present time, is driving our internal behavior. And that internal behavior is obviously to escape fear or the event that caused that initial fright to drive us to do things that are unhealthy. And those unhealthy things oftentimes, as we see it in America today, is overeating. We are driven to comfort that fear or that internal anxiety, that thing that just doesn't feel right, with sugar, sugar-containing beverages, sugar-containing food, the coffees, the cakes, the candies, the cookies, the pastas, the sauces, the dressings, those things we are using for comfort a lot of times to annihilate an underlying anxiety, and oftentimes we don't even know where that anxiety is rooted.
And it's great that you mentioned that idea of the overeating, because we've seen this before. And this is kind of a deep subject, and I kind of want you to really go with us here just for a second. When we're talking about this control of the wanting to control food, it's based in fear. Here's why. Let me give you an example. Someone has lost control of their life. They can't control other people relationally. That's gone bad. They can't control the way their parents treated them. That's gone bad. They're having trouble with a job. That's gone bad. They're having trouble with their children. That's gone bad. They can't control that. You can't control other people, right? So because of that anxiety, that fear that builds up, we want to control something. Guess what we can control? Food. The only thing that makes us happy again is this food. Being able to control where we put in our mouth. Nobody's going to take that choice from you. We talk about that all the time about, this is a better choice than that. But in reality, it's everybody's choice, isn't it?
When it boils right down to it, chocolate or vanilla. Chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream. You get to choose. Ice cream, no ice cream. You get to choose. It is our choice. Now, do we have a choice to be 100% healthy? Not always. But we can always move in that healthy direction by the choices that we make. And what helps us to overcome fear, first of all, is to analyze where that fear comes from. And that fear comes from a core belief system, the belief that I am a failure, the belief that I can't succeed, the belief that I'm not a good person, the belief that I am too fat, so I might as well just keep eating. That fear is based in a negative internal core belief system that comes from two things: our negative thoughts, how we think, how we create that internal environment, or that external stimuli that comes from TVs, commercials, people around you, those things that are coming into our system continually, past experiences that we're spinning around, they're all coming in, affecting our nervous system, creating that hypervigilance in our nervous system, and creating a fear that is causing these strongholds that are rooted in health destruction.
And let's talk about the opposites of fear versus faith, because we're talking about this in our life. I am afraid that I cannot follow that nutritional plan. How many times have you heard that?
I hear that 9 times out of 10.
I am afraid. You hear that word, right?
That I am afraid that I will fail that nutritional lifestyle.
All right, so let me throw this at you. What's the opposite of that? I will do that. I am not afraid. I have confidence that I will do that. Now, that is rare to hear, I will tell you, because you can see how fear has begun to control the whole situation. I'm afraid I can't do that in regard to this overeating. I'm afraid that I can't control myself. Heard that before too, right? I'm afraid I can't control myself.
Well, and oftentimes what happens is we get on the train, we start off with good intentions, we are moving in a certain direction, and then life happens. And so that disheveling or that moving off the train sets up that fear in us, or that fear that we won't succeed. So now we have initiated in our mind that I just can't do that nutritional plan.
Now, you mentioned something there, the fear of success. There is a fear of success. Some people are so afraid that they won't succeed that they settle for less than that, less than their best. How you're out there today, do you ever hear yourself with this self-talk saying, I am afraid, or maybe you say it out loud, I'm afraid that I cannot do this. I'm afraid I can't be there. I'm afraid I can't succeed. Does that stop you from trying? If you repeat it enough, it will. You're so afraid that you won't try. You throw your hands up and say, I'm done, I quit, I can't take it anymore. You see how fear, even the fear of success, can stop you from even reaching close to where you're supposed to be. You know, fear is real. I know we've talked about this many times in our lives, you know. We both had a lot of stuff to overcome in our lives as far as fear goes. You know, we run a business, we run a practice, we try to do the best we can. That thing is always knocking on the door saying, well, what if you can't do this? I mean, have those words came up in even your life and the life of people you talk to?
Oh, well, sure. You know, and in the practice, we have things that we do better than others, like the computer age has come upon physicians in the last 5 years, and we are challenged because we love to practice medicine. We don't necessarily love to practice typing soap notes into the computer, so it becomes a big challenge on whether or not you can take good care of your patients in a day's time, or whether or not you're going to get those notes done so that they meet a certain standard to be into the computer by a certain time. So fear comes up in those kinds of things, and with business decisions. Just because medicine and patient care is going on, there's the supplies that need to be done, the employees that need to be taken care of, the bathrooms that need to be cleaned. So the fear that those things might not get done, or the employees might not show up. So managing fear every minute of the day, I have to turn that into faith so that the Lord can take over.
Another fear that I see, I like to turn it into faith. You can turn fear into faith anyway by just turning your attention to God. That does it automatically. Another fear that we see sometimes is this fear of failure. We fear failure so much, and we've experienced what we deem as failure so much that we fail to try anymore. Fear becomes something that stops us from even trying. So we just go up. So the fear of failure, I'm going to fail again, I'm going to fail again, this is not going to work like it didn't work last time. You know what I've learned so many times about these people that are so successful in life? They have successfully overcome the fear of failure to keep trying. How do you know this time is not the time it's going to work? How do you know this is not the time that you have that hope that you're going to hang on to? How do you know you're not going to be successful? I have confidence in you that you can be everything you're supposed to be. I want you to have that confidence too. Have I failed before? Yes. Have I had fear before? Yes. I can give a personal story on that. I remember when I was working for the police department, I spent 24 years of my life serving the citizens of a municipality. And I remember as I felt the Lord stirring in my heart to retire and begin another career. At my age, of course I am just, what, 29? Yeah. But I remember people talking to me and saying, you are nuts. Aren't you afraid you can't make it? Now, that's a real story. We've talked about this many times. I remember people sharing with me, If you don't make it, what will you do then? Fear, stacked on top of fear, stacked on top of fear. Was I tested? You better believe it. And God's not the one that does the test. See, He gives us the directive. The one that tests us and tempts us is our enemy, is Satan himself. Now, just because I was tempted to back away from what God called me to do does not mean that I was making a mistake by being tempted. Temptation is not the sin. The action of the disobedience is a sin that takes root. So as this fear is coming at me from all different directions, and I'm sure they meant well. I'm sure they did. You know, here I am, 29 years old, not starting a new career. At my age, I'm going to do that. I'm going to step out there with something with little to no, well, I had some education in the area of health and wellness, quite a bit, but to step into a career like this, how was I going to do that? I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do, but I knew God started with me to do that. Fear was there. I got to tell you, it was right there with me. But you know, I'm thankful now, I look back on it, that even though that fear was there, that God strengthened me, and I didn't put my attention to Him in that area and did continue to walk forward. And I've seen how He's blessed that because I did have confidence in me. Even though I didn't know how He was going to do it at the time, He did it. I can look back on it several years back now and say, wow, what an amazing thing God did. Have there been times in my life where I've let fear, even my own self-talk or even the self-talk of others through words, stop me from doing what God called me to do? Yes, of course. Many times the faith we have in our life is that we step through fear. It's stepping to something bigger that only God's power can do. And to trust His love in that way is the most powerful thing you can do, because when you trust His love, He fills you with power to be confident in Him. Fear is gripping our society right now in regard to our health. We are living in fear. We're fearful because the insurance premiums are coming up consistently. Health insurance is changing. The hospitals are getting bigger. They're not getting smaller. Even doctors with your colleagues, they struggle regarding keeping up with all the changes. So you've seen fear in there, and how do they step out and get out of the system? Fear is real, right?
Fear is absolutely real, and oftentimes we don't step out and get out of the system. We just buck up and take it and see more patients a day just to stay into something that prevents us from stepping out there and moving into that freedom, like opening your own practice and working at a pace that's healthy for you and being able to see the amount of patients that you can see in a healthy manner in a day, instead of ramping that pace up to 40 patients in a day, 5 minutes a patient, having to type all those things into the computer. You know, we have to really step back and look at, are these things making us better doctors and better practitioners, or should we take a look at, you know, who is at the heart of the matter now? Is it the almighty dollar and our own personal paycheck, or is it our patients? You know, the Lord provides. He provides in big ways, and we need to look at, are we allowing our health to be taken away by our reaction to fear and our reaction to fear? What are we doing that is causing us harm?
Yeah, and you see, fear in itself, obviously we talked about the fear in itself, how it affects our physical person. We know that if we that thing we fear, we continue to do, if we think about it and kind of feed that fear. Fear affects our emotions, doesn't it? Fear is rooted in emotions anyway. Fear can affect our ability to even listen and hear someone's voice, mainly God's voice speaking the truth, or maybe God has put something in your life, maybe something on this television program, the time we have together. Maybe someone else has come to your life and spoke a word of truth to try to get you to move on. In that time in my life where I was facing fear, I had people in my life, a few, not many, that would say, okay, if you feel like you're supposed to do that, go ahead. So those were actually people speaking into my life, and I was able to hear them. If I had too much fear, I wouldn't hear them. Fear was going to lead. Fear will affect you spiritually as well, of course, because we know that faith and fear cannot exist in the same realm, because God is love, and His perfect love drives out all fear. So fear is something that we really need to be aware of. It is a normal emotion, is it not?
Yes, fear, you know, fear, the anxiety is necessary, Anxiety is a healthy thing, but to be able to recognize it and not let that anxiety take over our emotions to where we're driven to the strongholds that cause an unhealthy life or lifestyle is very important. And that, again, goes back to that awareness. Where are we living? Are we living in the present, understanding what our internal and external thought processes and what that stimuli is actually doing to us? Are we aware of what is really going on inside of us so that we make good decisions and we are taking good actions instead of reacting to those stimuli?
Yeah, you know, we got to really get a hold of this because I want to encourage you with something right now. And hear my heart. You are not designed to walk around. It's not, you know, there are things that come upon us regarding sicknesses or occurrences or diseases that we can't help, right? But you are not designed to go around life bringing those on yourself. That's not what you're here for. Have confidence in God. Have confidence in His ability to touch your life, to heal your life, to do that thing in your life that maybe the practitioners couldn't do, maybe the doctors couldn't do. Have faith in God to do it. I believe His Word. I believe it's true. If nobody believes it, we do, right? Why can't that person that believes it be you? Why can't confidence in Him reside in your life? Why can't that be? You are designed to be a healthy person, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. You are not designed to be controlled by fear in your life. If you're out there today and you are experiencing fear, it is time to take charge of that thing by taking your life and put it in the hands of God. Letting Him have your life, letting Him overcome your life and overwhelm your life with love, and it will drive out that fear. Don't you try to do it yourself. Don't you try to take that and get it out in your willpower. Get it out in God's power. His power can drive out that fear. Now, we really appreciate you guys joining us. We do. And we are very passionate, as you know, about these subjects. And we want you to be well. We want you to be strong. We want you to be confident, not in your own ability, but the ability that God gives you. Be confident. Have no fear. Have no fear. Have faith. Let God deposit an enormous amount of faith in your life every day. If you don't ask, you won't receive. Ask Him for faith. He'll give you faith. He is perfect love. You already have that. So my friend, we thank you for joining us today. Thanks for taking time today. They always so blessed to be here with everybody. I hope you're blessed to be with us as well. Connect with us on our website. Join the newsletter. Take the value pledge. Support us in prayer. And God bless you. We love you so very much. Bye-bye.